I look like I did something with my setup here. You know what? I think I need to bring the camera closer. I feel like I've moved. Don't I look distant now in the shot?
Yeah, something is different.
I gotta figure this out.
I don't know what it is.
Bring the whole
But it will
monitor
be
close.
great when in like 2037 we're still working with the what is that? The
Mike Dashboard?
Yeah. What's a good one back there? We got
You want me to duck out of the way?
It was a ridiculous draft selection.
I like Eric Bledsoe over here. That wasn't that long ago.
You know, right next door, Thomas Pegleg Bryant. I don't think he can. I don't think he can hold that ADP.
Oh, so sad. I like looking up near the top. What was crazy? He's out of the picture, but Jamal Murray went 24th in this, I think. Is that possible? Yeah. That was a thing that happened before he blew out his leg. Let's see here. Look at that. Embiid in the second round. That was before he stayed healthy for 1 year.
That line might be the best line of the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Night. Ooh, Christian Wood, mid-3. Ouch. That's a scary one. Isn't it interesting how Shea was going up here, mid-2, and then this year he went mid-4, and he's the number 1 player in fantasy sports?
I haven't seen enough of him this year. I want to know, like, did he...
Oh, he's
just, like, massively...
Uh-oh. Brew, something's going horrible. Something's gone terribly awry. Wait a minute. I think you're back.
Yeah, it feels like I'm back now.
Well, that'll wake everybody up.
I feel like in like 20, 30 years, it's going to look like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. But the two things aside from water will be that and like internet bandwidth. We will all fight tooth and nail to get like dial-up speeds.
I was just glad that you didn't go with the attire. Because what was the... Oh, man. Someone's going to help me in the chat room here. The bad guy in the first one who basically just wore a cod piece. He had like a little flap that covered his butt crack. You remember that costume?
What's a cod piece?
We had like just a piece that covers your cod. And then he had a butt flap. His name was like the toe cutter. Is that possible? Someone help me on this. Do you think anyone in our chat room is old enough to watch
that movie?
Here, let me Google toe cutter.
This was before Mel Gibson was.
Yeah, there you go.
Totally nuts.
Toe cutter was a leader of his own merciless motorcycle gang, but I don't think he was the one who had the butt chat. Who? No, that was me Googling.
Wiki chat.
Which Mad Max villain had a butt flap? That's what I'm going to Google. Wes.
I don't know if you ever safe search on
name was
but that
Wes.
might not be good.
I got that wrong. It's fine. You can Google my internet history here. The character's name was Wes, and he had a leather flap over the center of his buttocks.
I don't want to Google your internet history, Dan.
That's true. It's fine. Hey, this is like rolling right into an ExpressVPN ad on live on air. You want your ISP to know you're searching for the dude who wore a butt flap?
Google your search history.
I can use these. How do I do this? I unfriend you. I like that commercial. Hey, if anybody's watching, you guys know we just shoot the breeze first 5 minutes or so, let everybody kind of get settled in. If you're watching later, you can advance a few more minutes, like after the fact. We're just letting the room populate. We're letting it populate. Plus, I gotta send it out.
Too.
Yeah, you want to go get some coffee? That's fine. I can entertain people with talk of butt flaps. Flaps live on air.
You know, we got people. We got people in the Ethos Studios hard at work.
There you go. How am I still hearing you? Where are you?
Well, I got my earphones on, so I can walk around the studio. We got our engineer right over here.
Studio.
Working overtime. All right.
Is that a world map just out of view there on the side of the office? That's all right.
Yeah, we're worldly people here at Sports Ethos.
We are. We're exceedingly cultured. We're a bunch of louts. I don't know what anybody's told you.
Yeah, don't listen to them.
I got a cool new graphic for our show today. I was punching along with that yesterday. Kind of proud of my remedial Photoshop handiwork. Hey, one thing I'll say, because there's like almost 40 of you that have already floated on in here. Do follow us on Twitter if you're not doing that already. I'm guessing a lot of you that are watching now are here because we posted the link on Twitter. But I do know that over time, YouTube starts to suggest this video. So if you just popped over after watching something else, I'm at Dan Besbris. He is at Aaron Bruski. This is a Sports Ethos fantasy show. And we're going to talk fantasy here in probably the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. So if you're bored, just, wait it out. We're good. We got questions coming in. I got plenty of things to cover. Big news. Dan. You doing a stretch?
Give them some health and fitness advice. Tell them to stretch. Take some deep breaths.
I'm in this folding chair still because it's so firm. I needed to really upgrade the firmness of my chair. My nice office chair is just rolling down the hallway there, but there's too much flex. It's creating a pinch. My sciatica's acting. Sciatica. It's fine. At least I don't wear a butt flap.
Can we just do jerky boy impressions for the entire show?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We got someone who's new to watching the show that just posted. Hi, just here. Dude, this guy's in for a rude awakening with the first 5 minutes of our shows every week.
Was he like, I need my ad drop advice now, please? Get these.
No, he's happy. He says, good to meet you. What's up, dude? It's nice to meet you, too.
Hey, yeah, hi.
Hi. Yeah, we just like to let folks get settled. Like a countdown. A lot of shows do a countdown, like a 60-second countdown. Nah, man. We talk about butt flaps here at Sports Ethos. Not one person in the chat room has said that they've seen.
Can we get a T-shirt for that, Dan?
Yes, I'm gonna get a T-shirt with Wes on it. Now that I know his name is Wes.
Did you source that yourself, or was that the chat room?
I did. I googled that. The chat room has been no help on the Mad Max front. Oh my God, bro! Look who's there.
There were like 3. Oh,
look at that guy. Vinsanity.
Look at him pitching his stuff.
That's nice. The nice name you got there, Vinsanity. Well, yeah, look at you. He's commenting on your slim down.
Yeah. Vince knew me at about 220. Maybe
I have.
230.
Should I tell listeners what the absolute highest I've ever been is? It's gonna be very sad for me.
It's gonna be like probably 171.
My highest? I'm only 5'9". I should let everybody know I'm 5'9", so aim low.
So
I'm a little dude.
Rubens, I don't know if Rubens is like 6 foot.
Rubens is big. I was unaware of that, and then we met in person. It was very exciting. He's a tall man.
Yeah,
you can't know these. You don't know these things when you talk to people over the internet.
Yeah, I know. Because I still had to I didn't know you were 5'9", Dan. You tried to make it seem like you were shorter than that. No, you tried to make it seem like you were like 5'3" or something. And
okay, so like
because like the pictures didn't add up. I was like, if he says he's 5'3" or whatever I had in my head, I was like,
I have a lot of relatives.
What size are these other people?
My wife is around 5'3". I'm like the tallest person in my immediate family and slightly extended family also. We are a very stereotypical band of Hebrews where, like, if you're 5'9", you can see over the crowd. Love them all for being 5'5.5", because I walk in the room, it's like, I can see every family member here. I love you guys. Band of tiny Hebrews.
They're just band of Hebrews.
Rubens!
Yeah!
All right, I guess we could do a fantasy show now. We got it all, came full circle. Man, good. It was good to see you, Rubens.
Goodness.
We got to have some Greek food here in West LA. That was tight. So we're gonna do a show on fantasy now. Thanks for everybody for hanging out with us. We'll talk some fantasy sports. We got a big thing to start on today's. So let me give you the countdown, because everything from this point on is also going to be out on the recorded side. Brew, you want to give me my Wayne's World countdown? I count on you for this.
3, 2, 1.
It's Fantasy NBA Today live. We're back, baby. Bruce in the office. You're not in a lounge chair in your yard today. You seem, I don't know, are you more stressed out today by being indoors or is it just too cold?
It is not as delightful. It is freezing. It was like okay that day. It was probably the last hot day. Sacramento has 3 days between summer and winter, known as fall, and but it's just 3 days, so we don't really get to enjoy it at all. But you know, I'm not gonna lie, I love the studio. Good people, good vibes, mediocre coffee, but it's all good.
Who made the coffee?
Costco made the
Oh, there
coffee.
you go.
And I've been drinking it forever.
Thought you were gonna
But
blame it
I
on
mean,
Ben.
you know, I didn't. No. It's nobody's fault. The Costco's. We'll blame them for most things.
Man, but Kirkland, I know I'm getting not sidetracked here, but Kirkland brand stuff, there's some good stuff mixed in there. Their Costco brand charcuterie that we had at my kid's birthday party was delightful. My wife went
Who
overboard,
ate that? Who ate that?
way overboard.
The kids didn't eat that.
No,
The
the
guests
kids,
didn't eat that. Did the guests
some of
eat
it,
it?
a lot of it
No.
actually did get consumed. The guests ate a lot of it, and now there's like 3 pieces that go in my older kid's lunch as his snack every day. He freaking loves salami. I can't figure this thing out. Anyway, we're starting today's show with the big injury news of the day. For those that are listening to the recorded version, I am at Dan Besbris. He is the great Aaron Bruski, the legend himself, creator of the Bruski Breakdown, the longest article in the history of fantasy sports. I'm bringing this up because there's actually been a lot that's gone down in the last week. I don't know how much of that, of the big picture stuff we want to talk about, but like on one of my shows last week, I mentioned it because it's a big deal. So I'm going to, in no particular order, I know people have been waiting 11 minutes for us to talk about something fantasy. So we'll do this thing fantasy first, but then I also want to get your thoughts on like the seismic shift going on in the industry. Kawhi Leonard upgraded to questionable right before we went on air. What should people do at this point? Because there has to be, expectations are not going to meet reality over the next at least few games, maybe few weeks.
No, I think this has been a real bad news start for him, and because the knee is, you know, there's been so much time off, and to start the season the way he has on the bench, it really suggests that they're managing this almost to see what they can get out of him for like the last oomph that he will have in his career. And that's kind of just like that's a heavy statement to make or just think about, because this is one of the I don't want to say like greatest players of all time, but like one of the better NBA players, and because of how underrated he's been, it's definitely I don't think people think of him in that context, but we're talking about a guy that was the top defender in the league while also being one of the better, like say top 10 at his peak offensive players in the league. So really a dominant presence in the NBA, even though he didn't get that billing. This knee stuff has absolutely just been terrible. And it's a deterioration. It's a tendinopathy. It's not getting any better, folks. Like, so when he's coming back, the hope will be that he managed this enough to be kind of what we thought he would be, but there's not going to be a full ramp. There's not going to just be a takeoff. It's not going to be, you know, he's playing all the time. It's going to probably be 75% of what we had hoped in the preseason, 50% of what we had hoped in the preseason in terms of his overall effectiveness. And then when he was playing, the explosion wasn't there. He looked like he was trying to play a lot more bully ball. So it's worrisome on all fronts, and then it'll disrupt the flow of the Clippers. And I'm not worried about like Paul George or anything like that, but you know, it's going to take a little bit for them to rework their team. So good news, but you know, I think we're all watching with cautious eyes.
Yeah, what do you think in terms of like how they bring him along? Because the beginning of the season they did this bring him off the bench thing. He played 20 minutes twice, and then the knee flared up. Do you think they try that again? Do you think there's going to be, I mean, I'm sure in a few hours we'll get an idea of how many minutes they're looking for him to get. I would assume he's nowhere near starters minutes for at least 3 to 4 weeks, maybe longer. But I mean, it's going to be like 20 minutes for a while, 23 minutes for a while. Like it feels like they're going to want to make sure he's okay at each point. Whereas with a lot of guys coming back from injury, it almost feels like the minutes cap is just this thing that teams do now. Like, oh, he's 20 today, then he's 24 next time. And they don't even really care how each one goes. But with Kawhi, it feels like they're really going to care how each level goes.
Well, this is a guy that's managed his own minutes, from his camp. He's really dictated the flow of how he's played. And the alternative scenario is like Robert Williams in Boston last year, where everybody knew his knee wasn't good and they just ran him out there for like 30 minutes a game. So it'll definitely be the former scenario where it's them managing this very carefully. And to your point, if it's going to be 25 minutes, it really becomes disruptive to have him with the starting unit. And I think Ty Lue correctly wants to stagger those guys, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And it at this point might just be his. I don't want to say his future because maybe he does rehab this thing. Maybe he gains the strength in those surrounding muscles to protect this injury, and he can be a 29-minute per game starter. 27-minute per game starter long term. But I would say, if it was my choice, I would say, hey, look, man, give me good 24, 25 minutes per game. We'll feature you when you're on the floor and manage it that way. It would be 16% less minutes in the aggregate, protect his career long term. And then again, if you're not comfortable having a rotation with placeholder minutes, because teams do this all the time. They'll use a starter and give them 18, 20, 25 minutes, but it's just known that bench reserve is coming in and they're going to play the bulk of the minutes, get the late fourth quarter minutes. I think staggering makes a lot of sense with them. And actually that could be a silver lining. I think if you start seeing tags with reports with, oh, he's going to, come off the bench and they're going to manage his minutes down to 25 minutes per game. And, the back-to-backs are going to be a thing. That value's it's already tanked. But once the confirmation of the bad news really sets in, Kawhi Leonard, he will have tons of name value. So I don't even know if he can pull this off, but he might start getting looked at as like a top 100 guy. And if that happens, then I think in a 25-minute role, you might actually get the reverse buy low here. But that's a couple weeks down the road.
What's a reverse buy low?
Well, right now he's like a big name guy. You might even be able to sell him high right now. He's returning, right?
Right.
People might think that he's the old Kawhi, first round Kawhi Leonard, second round Kawhi Leonard. I'm not valuing him. I'm probably not valuing him in the top 50. I'm probably not valuing him in the top 75 right now. So
do you think, I mean, in 25 minutes, can he get to those stages?
If they feature him, absolutely. And that's his style now. He's really turned into a bit of a ball hog.
Yeah.
So it's possible. I kind of want to get ahead of the curve, 3 weeks down the road, because like right now, I don't think there's value to be had. You definitely don't want to buy into Kawhi Leonard. I don't think you want to. And in selling, I don't think you can do that right now. So
right. Yeah. Like if somebody waited on him, yeah, that makes sense. If somebody waited on him, they're not going to sell him right now because they just got the good news. They're going to want to see something. But if that something they see is almost as frustrating as him just being out indefinitely, that's where you might be able to get in on him like closer to when value happens. Is that the reverse buy low?
That's the reverse buy low in a nutshell.
Hey,
yeah.
I got it.
It's wait till this thing plays out and be ready. Have your ducks in a row and hopefully find another player that's overvalued to get rid of.
Does he explode Marcus Morris here? That was one of the questions actually in the chat room, but I was going to throw it at you anyway because Mook's been amazing so far this year.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, it'll eat at the edges, maybe a round or two of degradation, but I don't think so. I think they need his offense. I think he's kind of those two dudes walk around the NBA like they own the place, and he's just going to keep doing what he's doing. You'll probably see it come out of the bench guys, others.
So again, I don't know how far we want to go on this, but I haven't talked to you on a show since it happened, and I'll say what we know for sure is that I guess it's been about a week or so since our good friends, many of whom Brew you kind of came up with at Roto World, got let go. That has to be kind of weird for you. These are like people that you've been close with for a long, long time.
It was like the biggest jaw dropper in the world. I got out of a big meeting for us here at Ethos, and my phone is blown up, and I, I just don't understand what they're doing over there. You know, um, they're making big buys elsewhere within the company, and then the people that built the place, you know, they turn their backs on them, and it just feels like there's no real leadership over there that that could come to bear. Um, and I mean, you know, it says a lot about our industry. It's really the reason I started Ethos, because I could kind of see this happening, and I could even sense with leadership over there at the time that there really wasn't a plan and there really wasn't direction to deal with the scarcity issue. And the improvements at the high levels of management. Not anybody that I worked with. Everybody I worked with was great. Um, they just it was almost like there was nobody driving the ship. So um, there was a little bit of a moment where I was like, really glad I built Ethos, started Ethos. Like it's and their loss, I guess, over there really, they're doing their thing over there. What we're doing over here is we're trying to build something sustainable over the long term that delivers value with our model to bring sustainability to all of the people involved, whether it's the customers that buy the product, that they can know that the people that are working on the product are happy, on an upward trajectory, and that we're building sustainability for everybody that participates in the chain. And we've been able to do that. It's been a great journey. It's been tough as all hell. I mean, I injured myself in the process, doing all those blurbs early on. But it was like the biggest thud in the world, and all those guys are super talented. I have no doubt that they'll be able to land on their feet and do extremely well. I think from an industry standpoint, it doesn't really reflect what we have going on in this industry. I just think that over there, they're just, their model might be TV, and TV, pays the bills because they've got the football package, they got all this stuff. But, in terms of like what's going on the ground with fantasy players, NBA sports fans, NFL fans, fantasy fans at large. How could you get rid of those guys? They were like the studs, the studs on the roster. It's like, I want to get rid of my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth round pick. And that'll work.
Including, and not to exclude any of those guys, but including the one who has basically been the face of Roto World's NBA operation for Checks Watch 25 years, Doc.
And Doc is a close personal friend, and we spent so many nights up late, just the 3, 4, 5, and we would yell at each other, go to bed.
Were you guys together over there for like a dozen years or something?
Yeah, it was a long time. And NBA, first of all, he was there.
Oh, right. You did football first. I forgot about that.
No. I did basketball first. I did do some football with Evan Silva and Greg Rosenthal. And Greg Rosenthal is a big reason I bought the house I bought. Because as I walked into a national championship draft, he gave me this brilliant piece of advice that allowed me to draft Larry Fitzgerald, who literally on an 80-yard touchdown run dropped 30 grand, which was my down payment at the time. It was like, yeah, I'm loving this. Thank you, Greg Rosenthal. And we were chatting about it the whole time, so it was great. But the whole vibe there, the people, the Evan Silva's, the Adam Levitans, Mike Gallagher, like everybody involved over there, Ryan Nouse, Jared Johnson, Jonas, like, those were my people when I was there. Just, real great people. And then obviously outstanding analysts. But Steve, he cut me my break, and he showed me the ropes. And the one thing that I really truly respect, and I understand Rick Cordella. I never met Rick; he wasn't my boss, but he now runs NBC, like the entire NBC Sports, like Dick Ebersol's old job. That dude's commitment to excellence is like, we share the same ideas and principles of what it takes to make it in this industry, and what you have to do, at the ground level, like the product itself. Steve, Greg, Evan, Adam, Ryan. These are the guys that were there when I was there. Matt Stroop, like the commitment to excellence, to do it the right way, to not make mistakes, to put in the time, to get it right. I mean, like that's what made Roto World go from like the basement to this national brand that then became NBC Sports Edge, and the kind of weirdest decision I've ever seen. And then they became Roto World again. And then they're like, oh no, we're just going to rip the heart out of that and no more of that. So
Yeah, there's like
it's just
a skeleton crew, I think.
yeah, and Steve, you know, aside from cutting me my break in this industry, you know, he guided me through everything, and they gave me the freedom to do stuff like the Kings reporting, and it was just awesome. And so, you know, those guys are super talented, and I expect them to land on their feet. And
Yeah, no
you know, I
doubt.
don't think this industry is as strong as it was before this decision was made over there. So, you know, we'll be there to pick up the pieces. You know, ethos will be.
Damn right. Yeah, we're thinking about you, all of you guys. Many of them have been on those shows. They've had obviously us on. I mean, a couple weeks ago, they were kind enough to have me on their Roto World draft show. That was like this. They did it last year too. That was this crazy moment for me where it's like, oh, this is the site I read growing up in this, reading you, Brew, reading Doc at the time, the early 2000s, and now I'm on their draft show. It's like, oh, incredible. And then this and sorry, I bashed my keyboard here. This anvil drops, and you're just like, what? Like this idiotic. I can do that. I don't know anybody over runs the place over there. I can be very frank. This ish is freaking idiotic. And yeah, we've been talking to these guys behind the scenes as well, just like making sure everybody's okay. But you're right, they will be because they're damn good at what they do. Other big news is that yesterday we got word that the Kyrie Irving suspension appears to be almost at a close, and that apparently he has taken ownership of the process to sort of rectify this thing, which to me actually is a pretty damn good sign. I mean, we still know with Kyrie, the next thing could be right around the corner, but the fact that he kind of went away from, and I say this, and I want to like kind of toe dance this just a little bit because it's a weird discussion and a tough one to have on a fantasy basketball show, but I am Jewish. I think most people that listen to this show know that about me. So I don't know if it necessarily means that what happened, like my opinion means more, but it does feel like it finally, my opinion means something. Where on a lot of these topics, I think it's best for me to just keep my mouth shut. This one does sort of apply to me a little bit. I actually feel okay about how this thing is now being handled. I thought the checklist was kind of dumb. Like, if you force somebody to do a whole bunch of things, it becomes this weird process that doesn't mean anything. They just like check a few boxes, get back into the game, and everybody forgets about it. If he really has, as everybody's saying, taken ownership of it and is doing things on his own to understand why the decisions he made were hurtful, then I'm okay with it. But that's just me. It's one man's personal opinion. I got yelled at on Twitter for having such an opinion. That's fine. You can have yours as well. I'm actually okay with him coming back on Sunday. And obviously, if you held him in fantasy, that's great for you. What do you do with Kyrie right now? Do you try to unload him fantasy-wise and like get what you can now that he's coming back? Do you expect this to be the last thing of the year, or do you think there's going to be the next one 3 weeks down the line?
This is like, hey, get in the head of Kyrie Irving. Let me know what's going on. Well, so I thought KD's comments. First of all, KD had a great interview that appeared to go multiple sites. Like he had one with Chris Haynes, he had one with Anscape, and
Hey, busy
I thought
man.
I think he was pissed off. That game was crazy. I mean, it was the Kings game. It was 153 points, and I knew within
I got to throw a
like
comment on the
one
screen while you're
possession.
doing that here. Sorry. It was a
Oh,
relevant
I got to
comment.
get the screen up. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
somewhere.
Pull the screen up and then launch back into
Yeah. I think it's
the
super
beam.
cool. I mean, I could see it getting like played out at some point. But I've already got ideas. I think they should aim the laser at something. I think that they could bring in multiple lasers. I think that they could draw laser images in the sky, you know, like slam and dunking on somebody. I think like, and if
We're going to
you've
do
not
these
been
things.
there or seen pictures, the possibilities are endless, and that's one of the things about the Kings. Like, to say what you say about the basketball side or whatever, you know, the past or whatever's going on there, but like the business ops is super good, and so you know, credit to them for what is really. And I'm surprised nobody else did this, but leave it to Sacramento to you know, be that outlier.
It's a little more
That's
baseball-y. I'm a baseball guy. Don't you feel like that type, like having like a victory celebration, like a routine, a thing? You see that in baseball a lot. They have all got their things they do when they get a hit on first base. Every team has their little. Dodgers did the head knock, and other teams do the little hang loose, and you don't see that as much in
finally let
basketball.
baseball
Like
players have a little bit of fun. I mean, baseball
yes,
with the unwritten rules, like, I mean, come on. But
yeah.
they,
Sorry. Anyway,
I
continue.
know it's dumb, but like, yeah, no, the Kings, that that whole area, the outdoor area surrounding the arena. First of all, I mean, usually the Kings play 500 ball, and the town is over the moon right now with the Kings. And so if they ever get top 4 seed status, I mean, you're gonna have to like shut your Twitter off because you know they're just gonna get real loud and unruly, I might add. With the I told you so's from the Kings right now. The Kings people are really great after 15 years of consecutive getting it wrong. But
Dude, all you had to do was fire Luke Walton. Told y'all from
I
the
got guys
first
on
day.
my timeline talking about how crazy like people are for not respecting the Kings, and they literally couldn't figure out that Luke Walton couldn't coach. Like
We did a show the day they hired him. Do you remember that? And you were like, I didn't watch that many Lakers games. Well, what should we expect in Kingsland? And I was like, you're gonna be in for a train wreck. Simple as that. He's an awful coach.
And it's just, I don't know. There's different universes, Dan. There's like the gambling and fantasy universe where everybody's super dialed into all the particulars about NBA basketball, and then there's like other, and they take forever to figure out Luke Walton can't coach. And then at the end of seeing 3 years of Luke Walton not coaching, well, they're like, it wasn't Luke Walton's fault. It was this other thing. Anyway,
yeah, clearly.
you asked about
Kyrie. I only just took the under every year that Luke was the Kings head coach, and it hit every year. And the second they let him go, I made the over my biggest wager of the offseason. That was it. That's all I needed to see.
I made the Pellies. I made the Pellies my biggest wager, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. I actually took the old win totals, and they look pretty good. But you asked about Kyrie.
Yes, Kyrie. Sorry, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. We didn't do a show last week.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they're you know, they're brothers at arms. I don't know. The Kyrie situation, I thought KD. So I was bringing up KD. I thought, you know, like, I guess this isn't even fantasy stuff, but KD, you know, he's like, I'm not going to tell another guy how to think, and I think that is sort of at the core of what you're talking about, like with the checklist and how this is really, you know, you can see the Players Association is upset about the length of the suspension and how it's been handled, and Kyrie put Joe Tsai, who's no angel, in this position, I think, of having a checklist, a PR move to say, hey, we're not going to take you seriously, Kyrie, until you do these things. And then Kyrie largely has done those things. And really, that's all you can ask of another human being, is to say, I'm sorry. And what are you going to do to fix it? And if they're demonstrating that, you kind of got to take them at their word. And if he comes back and burns everybody and posts another video tomorrow, that'll be the end. You know, everybody will be like, sorry, we don't believe you anymore. You know, you're kind of done. And that, to now get into the fantasy side, I think that might control the discussion, is you've been hit with the last chance now. And your value is absolutely cratered. So in terms of dictating what you want to do with the rest of your career, if you want to play basketball, if you want to go to a good situation, you better just buck up and do really well. So I'm probably not selling Kyrie.
Yeah, I mean, that does make a lot of sense. You're making a lot of sense right now. That terrifies me.
You made me get into the head of Kyrie Irving, man, and I am not good with that.
Well,
it's a journey, man.
I don't know if anybody watched the Harley Quinn cartoon on HBO, but there are a bunch of segments where they go inside people's heads, and this feels like a lot of that. It's good. It's a very raunchy, disgusting cartoon. I recommend.
so not for kids.
Yeah,
Okay.
problematic.
Noted. Noted. So they look terrible, like a team that, and Vaughn mentioned that maybe LA came with them. And it's like, okay, did they all get wasted in LA? Because they sure looked like it. They didn't
Probably.
like Malik Monk's a 40% 3-point shooter, and they're just like 5 feet off the guy. Hey, shoot, Malik Monk. We heard you can't do it. That's so I think when you see that stuff, I think the point I was trying to lightly say to the Kings fans, I didn't want to rain on their parade. They're on national TV for the first time in forever, and they're scored 153 points, and it feels great, and the beam's lighting up, and it's like, by the way, that team you guys beat, a bunch of third graders could have beat them, and keep it in context when you make your evaluations going forward. But that team, I think, is waiting for Kyrie to return. So you might just see the Nets get Kyrie back, have a kumbaya moment, and just hit the gas and run. And I'm not a big Nets guy. I don't believe in that team. And then you get the Ben Simmons stuff and all that, and it's a total mess over there. But I think Kyrie might just come, shoot out of a bottle. And then the question at that point, you might do the reverse sell high or whatever we're calling it.
I love that. The reverse buy low. That's so mysterious.
Inception, over here.
Yeah, I was like, what? The reverse buy low. What does that even mean? It's a magical place. Let's get to some of the broad questions from the chat room. You guys know I'll do this little spiel again. If you have a question that's like, should I trade this player for this player? I'm probably going to jump over it. And if we have time, I'll come back. But I want to hit the stuff that applies to as many people watching as possible. And before I do that, this is a mid-show reminder. Again, at Dan Besbris on Twitter, at Aaron Bruski on Twitter, at Ethos Fantasy BK. I should probably have put that somewhere on this graphic. That's where you can get your news feed. Hit the thumbs up button on the dang thing. More people then can find the show. You can subscribe to our YouTube page. We're going to, those of you that have already subscribed have seen it. We're adding shows. It seems like every week we have an extra show here on our YouTube page, and we're just going to keep adding until we can't add no more. So,
hey, does YouTube have a weirdo running it?
What's that?
Do YouTube have a weirdo running the company?
I don't know. Maybe. Possibly. It's possible. I don't know it, though.
Maybe we should do some more YouTube stuff, Dan. Like, it seems like it makes sense right about now.
Yeah, nobody has dramatically changed the way it works in the last week. So that's something. Every button that I pushed today did the same thing on YouTube as when I pushed that button a week ago.
Congrats, YouTube.
Yeah, setting a low bar.
You're the social platform of the week.
This is a pretty good question, actually. It's strategic. You get into sort of the roto strategy side. In a roto league, I got to read these. Sorry, I know video folks, you can see it yourself. I'm reading it for the folks listening on the podcast format. Do you use a slot for super streams, which is a term that I've brought into the lexicon here this year? Basically meaning the super streams are guys that were not roto games cap worthy prior to someone getting knocked out in front of them. Our question asker here says, I was and am doing it with Dennis Smith Jr. I did it in the past, pre-LaMelo Ball, campaign here with CP3 out. So these are guys that were, Payne in particular was nowhere near fantasy value. And then Chris Paul went down and he has rocketed past the ad line. My answer to this question is a resounding yes. I play in a lot of roto daily leagues where these types of guys, campaign right now, is playing better than the last guy on my bench prior to CP3 getting hurt. So particularly with the average player missing like 14 games a year right now, you can have a couple of roster slots on a roto team occupied by these types of guys, and they'll probably be better than the 12th best guy on your team. So for me, this is a hard yes. Brew, I don't know where you sit with this. I know a lot of your big money leagues are weekly roto.
Yeah, I kind of wonder what you've done to the roto industry, Dan, because like, are there more people playing roto games caps league now that you're so into them, and like the super streamer, and then even like, I mean, the way we talk about ads and drops, like I understand in that format, you're shooting for top 75. So if somebody's not producing top 75 value in that format, they're not as valuable. And I don't know, what is the mark in your leagues, generally speaking? Like when you want to get a guy in your lineup, are you taking a top 100, a top 115? I really think when we talk about this stuff, we got to almost lead with what plays in your league. Is it top 75? In my weekly league's 150, 75 plays. It just depends on, is it 3 games, 4 games? And to answer your question about, do I add somebody like that, there's 2 scenarios. One, my team is stacked and I don't need 1 week player. The other scenario, I got a bunch of injured guys. Like I got a team that's got like Cam, Bane, and can't remember off the top of my head who might be the other players. So like in that situation, Cameron Payne, feeling brought back long ago, makes sense. Like that, it comes down to, do you need to take on little diversion?
We got a slight internet glitch. I don't know if it's on my end or your end. We lost you towards the end of the campaign part of that thing, but it looks like you're mobile again on the video. So that very end, I think, is what cut off. I don't know if you remember the last 2-ish sentences you said.
No, if your team is healthy in a weekly format, you're not going to take a super streamer because you know that you're not going to need it. If you got holes in your lineup, go for it. But then if you're in a daily games cap situation and you need to get that top 75, the super streamer is the way to go.
Got it. So this is not so much the question itself, like as a weekend play, but DeAnthony Melton as a whole. He's had kind of a weird season so far where he had a few quiet games off the bench and it seemed like he figured out how to play with the bench unit. And then everybody got hurt and he slid into the starting unit where it didn't seem like his fit was actually all that great. And then they slid him back to the bench. So what are we expecting, hoping, whatever, out of Melton here over the next, I don't know, week or 2?
I didn't get over the moon with Melton. I know we were still ahead of everybody else, but like it was great. You get out of Memphis. They had plans with other players. They never really gave him a shot. He still did well. And then you're like, okay, great, that's awesome. And then you go, okay, I'm going to Philly, and thinking you got Joel Embiid, you got James Harden, you got then after that even more, players. It's like, okay, it's still going to be that inconsistent offensive role, defense, rebounding, big explosive games followed by quiet games that still pass the 150 muster. It's the money counting stats, steals, blocks, threes that keep him sustainable during those slow outings. But it's not the explosion. It's like if he could go play in like San Antonio or Oklahoma City or another place that's really going to just let him have the ball and learn. He needs to learn how to find his own offense in a better fashion. If he can do that, you're looking at a guy that could theoretically down the road go like 15, 5-5 with the goodies. So that's not happening this year. But again, I don't have his number up in front of me right now, but he's just fine right now. And if you go to add him, it's a long-term play. And I think he'll just continue to improve. I think his peak is probably coming like next season, the season after that. So that the improvement will slowly be there over these next couple seasons. And you just hope that he gets more comfortable. They love his defense, I'll tell you that much. Like internally, they're very happy with him, and it's just a question of, can he get better offensively?
Number 86 right now, by the way, for Melton.
Yeah, and
another
player it feels like a worst case scenario right now.
This is an interesting one because he's been all over the map, and Tom Thibodeau's been doing his weird stuff. Isaiah Hartenstein, did you watch much of that last ball game? He was out on the floor, but it just seemed like they didn't pass it to him. The rebounds didn't go his way. It was very weird, and he's had a couple of quieter ones despite getting back into the starting lineup. He's another guy, by the way. He's at 96 right now, so he's still very much inside the should he play bucket. But what the hell's going on the last week or 2?
I've watched enough Hartenstein there's probably been about like 5 of those games I've watched where it's like the ball doesn't go his way, nobody passes to him, he's just hiding on the floor, which is not typical Hartenstein. We've known him for his permanent value and how he's been able to sustain value in like 19 minutes per game. So One thing that I thought was interesting looking at that box score, I need to coin a term. I think it's like box score health. So let's coin it right now, Dan. Box score health. And the reason why I bring that up is like sometimes you'll look at a box score and you'll either know exactly how the game went, or you'll look at it and you'll go, that game just goes right into the gutter. You don't even evaluate it because nobody in the game, and it's not usually for both teams, nobody in that game, minus Julius Randle, had a good box
Yeah.
score. I mean, I might be missing like one guy. That tells you something about, I mean, it could almost be like the statistician sometimes. And Denver's had a few of these. So that's something, if you're a DFS player, I would probably be looking to see if there's a trend there. Denver had a game, they had 0 steals and blocks and 0 turnovers for their entire starting unit. And all those guys played like 30 minutes per game. So I think there's a box score or health issue for this one particular game, but I can't fade that guy. Like honestly, like Mitchell, his injury situation it's been dire for like a full year. So that alone provides the potential for the upside. But even if he cruises at 19 minutes or whatever he's at, you know, in a backup role, I think the stats, I think he just comes as a top 100 guy, you know, and if you're in a head-to-head situation and you feel like the value of the percentages isn't helping you, if, you know, there's not enough pop, if it doesn't fit your team build, I get it, you know, but in a vacuum, those values do make him a 7th round player, you know, and that's got value. 7th, 8th round player, that's got value. So you have to be pretty stacked to want to look at that and move on.
So this is not. We're not going to answer this exact question. The question is about a trade, but it involves Larry Nance. That's the name that I wanted to get into our discussion today. He's looked awesome so far this year. I'm always waiting for the injury shoe to drop with him. You know how much I love Larry Nance. He's been like one of my top targets for multiple years on the roto side because those injuries don't burn you quite as much. But, you know, he's in their closing lineup. JV had a big ball game yesterday, so that kind of pushed Nance down the board a little bit, and he still was okay in like 19 minutes. What do you think we're getting out of Nance? Is he a rest of season dude? Because it sure feels like it right now.
Yes, he's a rest of the season dude. Like you got to treat him that way. You can't get around that. The potential, that's why we've been tracking him for so long. The potential for him to be this good has always been there. It's interesting that JV has taken the step back and they've really moved to this super long and mobile lineup. Zion, that's the big wild card, I think. You know, when he's on the floor, how do things turn? But like, just I think Nance creates this dynamic presence for their team where they have so many good athletes flying around doing stuff that it just makes them really good. And I think you're going to see more Nance rather than less Nance. And then the injury stuff is what it is. So you're always kind of getting out of the Larry Nance business when it's good because that injury is almost always right around the corner. So I think you're probably planning for him to have a week, 2 weeks of good games and then just get that on the market and see what you can get for it.
By the way, I found a question from Josh that ties back to our other discussion on streamers. Dan, you've talked a lot about how many A+ streaming opportunities there have been this year, and there have been quite a lot of them. Is there value in having an open roster spot for streaming rather than a roster full of undroppables? Well, I mean, my take on this one is if your roster's stuffed, then you don't need a streamer. You know, it's sort of, your question kind of answered itself a little bit. I just find that, you know, if you've got 14 or 15 slots on a roster, one of those guys is probably droppable for any one number of reasons. It's pretty rare to have 15 guys that are all rest of season just kicking butt dudes.
What I sense in this question and the other question as well is like, is there a strategy in the aggregate to just totally eschew the in a vacuum evaluation? In a vacuum evaluation is that, like, let's say a Kongwu who's, you know, at like 120, 130, and it just feels like that's what it's going to be. Yeah, is he better than Clint Capella? Yes. Is Capella playing well right now? Yes. Is, you know, like, you know, you're just like, it doesn't look that good. Yeah, there's value. There's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if that switches, and Okong was a top 75 guy. Should I be taking the campaigns and the Torrey Craigs and these guys that you're just not that excited about, but in the now they're going to be productive, and you just do it long term and you don't care, and can you eke out 20-30% more value than having all of these guys who are better assets in a vacuum, but you're going to have that one slot and just sort of give it away to this concept? I think the answer is yes, but I think it's like a couple bad moves and you probably miss out on a guy that you would have wanted. And it's really, it's a really theoretical question where, we're not going to get an answer in this show, but I think you do. And then what you talked about, Dan, is like, who actually gets into your lineup? And if you really want to take it a step further, how do the stats of the people that you're talking about complement your team? It's like 3 different variables. That's why the ad drop discussion in fantasy basketball is really, it's complicated, it's nuanced, and I like to just call for more nuance when we talk about this stuff, in blurbs, tweets, because like ad drop, like for which team, for which format, for what plays in your league.
It's hard. I mean, it's the value of having a video or an audio show where we can get a little bit, at least, more in depth in a couple of minutes, as opposed to.
And that's why we did the beneficiary notes. Like, sort of the pitch man over here. That's why we did beneficiary notes, is because in the blurb land, you're trying to get the info out fast. It's more general, and you can't get into the deep analysis of like, what's the usage here? What's this here? And if you go to our injury page for premium members, our guys who are the best in the business, and I mean, some of the best writing I've ever seen, they will go for these key injuries, these key situations where the minutes and the usage and everything's fluctuating. They write a damn essay, about what is exactly going on. So now you can go with your super unique situation and get in there and really figure it out. So just go to the injury page, which, by the way, you guys got a bookmark, especially now that, Roto-World decided that their top 9 draft picks weren't worth keeping around. And that, have that injury page up, because it's updated with all the most latest stuff. And, when you sit down at 3:30 Pacific time and you're trying to figure out your lineup, there's one page you can go to that has not just the injuries, but if you're a premium member, you get this in-depth analysis and you can just make moves.
We are not out of time, but we are somewhat short on time. So I think we can get into 1, maybe 2 more players on this board that I know people want to hear Bruce's thoughts on. Again, a reminder, please do like and subscribe. That's the thing that we say here on the YouTube. Hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube page. What are we going to do? Which way is Dan going to go towards the end here? There's one that I've been getting a fair number of questions on. What's up with Jordan Poole? He had this one gigantor game play out. Yeah.
I feel like I don't, I haven't had enough time with the RSI and blah, blah, blah to talk on Twitter or, anywhere really. Poole is just fascinating. I'm wondering, Dan, should we institute a rule that if somebody gets knocked the F out, that they become like almost undraftable? I'm in on Jordan Poole. Like, guys, I'm not giving up on Jordan Poole. He was a big B150 guy. The principles behind that, I won't even, if it doesn't go well, I'm not going to feel bad about this one. But he looks so shook, confidence-wise. And it's just hard not to just take it back to getting knocked the F out. Everybody saw it. Now he's got to play with the guy. And he can't just go walk up to him and fight again. He's going to lose. He's got to give it up in some way. He's got to take his L, which is an unfair, cheap, dirty L that he got. And that's why Steve Kerr said it is the biggest catastrophe, drama, disaster that he's seen in his 9-10 years of coaching that team. And so we saw it with Niko Mirotic. Like, once he was healthy, he wasn't the guy we thought he was. And he was that guy. So, like, we had a ton of Niko that year. We were going to cash in, and it was just taken off the board because he got knocked the F out. And It's so anyway, like the
Remind me,
principles
man.
behind
That
Jordan
one's.
Poole,
I don't want to talk about. It
they're
stings the
already
mirror. Oh,
it was brutal because like you got him in whatever slot 9, 10, and you're expecting top 50 production, and you're building your teams around it. And in the first week or whatever, that happens. With Poole, like so they're already worried internally about Steph Curry doing too much. Clay will be a year-long reclamation project to get him his confidence back. Dre is not somebody they're relying on for offense. They don't want to run these guys into the ground. The only reasonable thing that they could have done entering the season is say, hey, the guy we paid a ton of money to, go and carry us when the games don't matter and do what you do. And he hasn't done any of that. He's passed up shots left and right. They've completely shook him with the palming, carrying, traveling thing. He's literally the most targeted player in the league right now on that front. There's an argument to be made that he was getting open because of the palming and the carrying, but not to that degree. This is a guy that didn't forget how to shoot. He's a guy who shot better at free throws than Steph Curry. He's got elite shooting talent that just doesn't go away. I think that he's trying to kind of fit in, please his teammates. I think that the record for the Warriors is going to be, always kind of dogging them until they go on. And here's what I think will happen with the Warriors. I think that they're going to, they're kind of right around 500 right now. They're going to go on like a 12-game winning streak. It's probably going to occur in like, mid-December to mid-January. Everybody's going to shut up at that point, and then they'll start to kind of gear down for the final decline before the playoffs. And in that run, Jordan Poole is going to probably have his max usage, seem to bounce back on all the percentages stuff, and they don't have anybody else to do what he's needed to do. So to me, it's like if you bet against Jordan Poole right now, you're essentially saying he's not going to get his confidence back all year long. And that to me would be that if that happens, I will never draft a player who gets knocked the F out ever again.
It's a good possible rule, actually. It's added to the handicap, man.
That's the idea that like I get it, he sucks right now, but
yeah,
I would be trying to lean into that. What could you get Jordan Poole for? We're getting people asking if he should be dropped. You could almost like offer like a 150 top 150 guy, a top 125 guy. He should be a top 50.
Like, this whole discussion now reminds me of like how George Foreman used to pitch the grill, that he was like gonna punch the fat out of food. I feel like these players are having the basketball players are having their shot punched right out of them, Monstars style. But yeah, Draymond, Bobby Portis, you guys are breaking our fantasy hearts here. Stop punching people. Oh well.
Well, Bobby Portis became good at fantasy.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll never forgive him taking my Nico away. You remember for like a year I made jokes that I rented a van and I had traveled. I was just gonna like follow Nico Mirotic around to convince him to come back.
You're calling him jokes, Dan, but I watched you do it. So
right. The paper trail.
Probably have a restraining order at this point.
I got rid of the van.
I just watched the episode of Breaking Bad last night of where they get rid of the RV. It was great.
Yeah, I chase Nico around on a bird scooter now. That'll do it for us on YouTube. Brew, until next week, good sir.
Toodles.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry we didn't get to more of the questions. We want to go deep on the big ones. Whatever you got, throw it in our forums over at Sports Ethos. That's sportsethos.com/community. We check all of those questions out. You guys have a lot of really good ones here. Just port them on over that way, and we'll check those out later today. So long, everybody.